Why, hello and welcome to this small little video. I wanted to go ahead and do an actual tutorial on the eyes. I have two different ways, um, very easy application ways to apply eyeshadow. Um, the whole like priming, blending, and stuff like that. This is for those that have no idea how to work with eyeshadow. They want to start, but they're a little intimidated, and I'm here to make it a little bit easier for you. Um, so we're just gonna go ahead and dive right into it. First and foremost, you want to make sure you prime your eyelids. As I know people with dry skin don't really have to worry about this. People with oily skin most definitely have to worry about this, but let me just say, by priming your eyelid, your eyeshadow is going to come out way more even, and your eyeshadow is going to apply way more pigmented than you want it to, because sometimes when you apply eyeshadow just directly onto your skin, some eyeshadows are not going to show up whatsoever, and you're just going to have to put on a lot. And the easiest way to not put on as much eyeshadow, especially if you're on the go, you're going to want to prime a little bit. And primer, you can get an actual like eye primer. There are some pretty decent cheap ones. Elf has like a $2 one that works pretty good. Wet n Wild one that also has a pretty good one for like $5. Or you can get the expensive, more popular Urban Decay eyeshadow primer potion. Um, and if you don't want to do that, you can just use good old concealer or good old foundation. Works just fine. Just make sure that when you use concealer or when you use foundation, that you set it with a translucent powder. A translucent powder is basically a powder that has no color to it. Give me a second. Let me try to find one real quick. So I have two small examples of translucent powder. These are pressed versions. They're a little easier to work with instead of the loose formula that are really messy. And this is the Rimmel Stay Matte powder in transparent. It says transparent right there. And mine's like destroyed because I use it a lot. But it's basically just like a pressed powder. There's no pigment to it. When you blend it out, it's not gonna show up or anything. It's just gonna, keep everything set in place. And then I have this Essence one right here that's kind of white. This one's a waterproof powder. But when you blend it out, I mean, it looks really white on my finger, but when you blend it out, it shears, and then it gives you a nice base, because when you put color on top of white, it's gonna pop more. So yeah, that's that. On one eye, I am going to use a concealer, and then on another eye, I'm going to use an actual eyeshadow primer just to show you the difference. And I'm going to keep it pretty affordable, pretty drugstore, as much as possible, because not a lot of us that start out with makeup have a lot of money, and that's pretty much how I am too. I love to get drugstore stuff. I hardly have any like high-end stuff. So on this eye, I'm going to prime with a concealer. This is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Concealer in the shade Ivory. This is like $4, maybe less depending on where you get it. So what you do is you just apply a dab, and you take your finger. And you can kind of move it around so that it hits all of the spots on your eye, and then tap it all over. This will help blend it into your skin, and it'll keep you from having to use multiple products, because there's like flat shader brushes, flat concealer brushes that you can use to apply this. But again, if you're feeling pretty intimidated by the whole process, just use your fingers. And then there is that. And you can see concealer is meant to cover blemishes. See, I have a lot of redness, so I would use a concealer to cover blemishes if I don't want to use a foundation or and whatnot. And you can use the same thing because this concealer is matte, which means it doesn't have any shininess to it, any oiliness. It just finishes to like a powder finish. And then I'm going to take that Rimmel Stay Matte powder and then take one of the eyeshadow brushes that I'm going to be using. I'm going to dip into it like so. And you can go pretty hard if you want to so that you have it on there. Also, it's pretty important that you let this dry first, because if you put it on pretty wet, it's gonna gather together and get chunky while it's still wet, so you want to make sure that it dries. I have hooded eyelids, which means that I have pretty intense creases in my eyes, so if my eyes are relaxed, you cannot see my lid whatsoever. I pretty much have to raise my eyebrow and look up like this in order for you to see my lids. And if it's like this, it'll start to crease. So I want to use powder to prevent it from gathering into like little folds. And then to apply it, you just pat it with the brush. And then you can go ahead and swipe. So swiping like this in short strokes. And that eye is set, and as you can tell, there is a difference between a naked skin eye and then one with concealer and with powder that's not gonna move. And this one, it's gonna pop way more because it's a more intense base. And then I'll show you guys the other eye with an actual like eyeshadow primer. Again, this is a Wet n Wild one. Wet n Wild is very affordable, so a lot of my products are Wet n Wild. So this is the Photo Focus Eyeshadow Primer by Wet n Wild. It's a squeezy tube, and it comes out in like this, I'm trying to like, this one's a little bit tougher because it's a little hard to control how much you want to squeeze out. You want to make sure you just slightly squeeze. Don't immediately just like squeeze, or else you're gonna waste a lot of product. But this goes on pretty clear. I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm just gonna dot it on, slide it. I'm gonna slide it around like so first. Slide it all over, and then I'm gonna start doing that patting motion that I did with this eye. So this one dries down clear, has no color to it. There are some primers that'll have that, but for the most part, these more affordable ones don't have as much. It really depends on your preference. I would say the concealer one is more if you're gonna do like actual like colorful looks, and then the regular primer is if you just want your eyeshadow to stay put. All right, that's pretty sufficiently blended, and I always get it in my eyelashes. All right, and then it doesn't take long for that to dry. I'm gonna use the other powder that I showed you guys, the Essence All About Matte Fixing Waterproof Powder, and using the same brush that I used to apply the powder on this eye, I'm just gonna go in. So it's on there. You can tap it or not. Totally a preference. And then like I did with the other eye, you just tap it on. And then start doing your short sweeping motions. So I'll slow down so you can see how that looks like. It's basically like this. You press down and then glide it onto your eye, but in a more faster state. All right, so this one's looking a little brighter because the powder is a little wider, a little bit more white versus this one. This one just looks more skin-like, kind of blends in with your eye. So I think with the concealer one, I am going to do I'm going to use two shadows. I'm going to use a dark shadow and then a light shadow. And I'll probably use the same one on this end, but I'm going to do it in a different technique. The eyeshadow palette, it's all about your preference, about what you have. There's many other like things about eyeshadow, like what works for your eye shape. And for example, with my hooded eyes, it's best not to use as many shimmery like eyeshadows, because the shimmery eyeshadows are going to basically like make me look more like this. And it's not going to look as flattering as if I just use a regular matte eyeshadow. So I will use both a matte and a shimmer, so you can see how I can do with that. Anyways, like I said, you can use any eyeshadow that you want. You can use a single, like a couple single ones that you have, or a palette that you have that you bought from Walmart or wherever. This one was a birthday gift from a friend. It is one of my favorites. It is super easy to work with. This is a ColourPop eyeshadow palette, which I have featured on my channel multiple times already. It's incredibly basic. It is incredibly easy to work with. You can just choose whatever shade you want. It's all gonna work. Not a single shade that you choose in here is not gonna go together. They're all gonna go together. So, and my favorites to use is this bottom row down here, because you have a light, you have a medium, a dark, and then a shimmer to put on top or on the inner corner. So I believe I am going to use that bottom row also. So I'm going to use the lightest shades for the easiest application. So the lightest shade right here, I'm going to apply with that same brush that I used to apply my powder. I gotta take off some of the powder that's on there so it blends a little easier. And what did I say I was gonna do first? I was gonna apply this on my concealer side eye first. So tapping into the light shade, you can either like lightly drag it on there, or you can tap it like this until you see the product on there. And just like whenever I applied the translucent powder, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to tap it. I'm just going to tap it all over the eye, because this is the easiest, one of the easiest ways to do eyeshadow. Just going to tap it and then do the sweeping, the quick sweeping motion that I did before all over the eye. And then I want to build it up so that the color comes off a little bit more, so you can actually like see the color. But it's a light shade, so you can't really see much. And then you're going to want to do blend. You're going to want to blend the eyeshadow because you don't want to leave a harsh line of shadow up here. You want it to look like it's pretty faded and pretty soft. So to blend, you take your brush and then you lightly go back and forth. And you can work in sections. You can work from the small part and blend, go to the middle and blend, or you can do it in one big motion depending on what works best for you. And then, or you can do big circles like this. It all depends on how you want to do it. All right, so I've got my color built up the way I want it to. I'm gonna go in with a second brush. And then this is a crease brush. A crease brush has like a point to it. I'm gonna try to show you the difference. So this is just a large eyeshadow brush. So it's kind of has like a flat end, but it's a little fluffy on the top versus this one. This one has like a side to it like this, and this one's all around kind of fluffy. Some have like a point to them. This is a crease brush or a fluffy, blending brush. But the crease brushes have a little bit more of a point, and that point goes into your crease a little easier. So I'm going to go in with this shade right here because I went in with this shade. So now I'm going to take this shade, do the same thing. I'm just going to tap in like this or sweep, whichever one, until that color gets on there. And you're going to want to apply this a little bit below your first application of your eyeshadow. And what this does is it pretty much gives the illusion that your eye shape is different than what it actually is. It just brings out your eye shape more than you want it to. And then I'm going to do the sweeping. Instead of the patting motion that I did in the first one, I'm just going to do the sweeping motion. So just sweep back and forth. And that's it. That's all you can do for this eye. And this is basic. This is simple. It's not fancy. Like, it's good for every day because you can just apply it, and then you're good to go. So now for the second eye, man, I lied. I'm so sorry. This video is starting to get very dragged out, and I was trying to make it short, but it came out a little longer. Whatever. It is what it is. So I was gonna put shimmer, like a matte and a shimmer on this eye, but I'm just gonna keep it like that. If you wanted to add a shimmer, you can take your finger and take the shimmer shade. So, sorry, I'm trying to like switch sides. So I'm just gonna swirl my finger a little bit until the product gets on my finger. And then place it on the inner corner. Just like that. It's just simpler. It's a little prettier. And then you just put on your mascara and go. For the second one, this one, I guess it can be a little fancier. So for this application, you take one matte shadow, and then on the center of the lid, you add the shimmer. So I will go, instead of on that first eye, I did this lightest shade. So now on the second eye, I'm going to take this shade as the main shade instead. So same thing, tap in, tap, tap and sweep. And you can keep going in to build the color. And then the outer edges on the top here, you can start to blend. And then you can take the crease brush and then and make sure it's clean. I gotta clean my brushes, I'm sorry, but take the crease brush and then brush back and forth on the top so that there are no harsh edges. And you can tell that it's not as harsh looking. So now I'm gonna go in with a shimmer. I'm gonna use this one right here. This is like a darker, like a rose gold. It's got like a coppery tone to it. And so swirl a finger. It's on my finger now. And then just apply it on the lid. Just all over the lid. Just don't go too far above where the first eyeshadow was. So then you can take your crease brush, go in with the first shade that you used, and then apply some more on the top. And you want to do it in light strokes. All right, and then just like how I did with this eye, you can take the light shimmer shade like I used in the first eye. Take your finger, lightly swirl it so that it's in there. Apply it on the inner corner. And that's it. Those are two simple looks, one more fancier because it's got shimmer, which shimmer is, you know, pretty fancy all on its own. You don't really have to do as much dimension. And then this one, I just used 2 matte shades and a shimmer on the inner corner for a simple, like, easy everyday look. And now all you got to do is just apply your mascara and then whatever other kind of makeup look you want to do. And that's pretty much it. I'll go ahead and apply a mascara. That way you guys can see how completed it can look just with the mascara. All right, so just a quick overview for eyeshadow. You want to make sure you use a light shade and a dark shade. Always apply the lightest shade first and then apply the darkest shade second. And make sure that when you apply it, you only apply the dark shade in the crease. Or if you're going to apply a shimmer on your lid, make sure that it's a little bit above the lid, not completely on top of the other shade. That way it gives dimension. And then just apply your mascara and then whatever other makeup you're doing, and then you're out the door just like that. Um, so if you guys like this video, if you have any critiques for me, because I am an amateur, I am not by any means necessary a professional makeup artist. I am just a makeup lover, and I like to teach people about makeup because I'm getting questions from friends and family about how I do my eyeshadow, about how I do this, that, and the other. And I wanted to do this to share my knowledge with everyone else because I've learned all of my techniques from YouTube, um, and so yeah, so hopefully that you guys get excited to try these looks. And if you do try using these techniques, please tag me. Follow me on Instagram. I'll put my Instagram handle on the bottom. And if you want me to follow you back, give me your Instagram in the comments and I will follow you back if I'm not following you already. So this has already been way too long. I'm so sorry. Again, 1,000 times, thank you for taking the time to watch, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye.